Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Inspirational Corner with me, your host, Stylisha Bolden. As we encourage you here to live bold, live loud, and live authentically without apology. Welcome to another episode, everyone. I am so glad that you decided to listen into my podcast today. And if you are new to the podcast, I truly encourage you to hit the subscribe button so you will not miss out on any new podcast. Also, while you're here, I also encourage you to share this podcast with someone who wants to be uplifted, encouraged, and empowered. Also, if you're not following me on social media, you can follow me on Instagram at Stylisha, Stylicia, and at redlips_stilettos. I am so excited to get into this episode on today. My last episode was part 1, and I was talking about the Confident Confidentials. That consisted of talking about the concept of being comfortable in your own skin. And a lot of women, are not comfortable in their own skin. And the last episode, I talked about the internal things of how we can become more comfortable in our own skin as women. I talked about my story and my journey in self-confidence. And I just want to make this disclaimer. Confidence is a constant evolution. It's not a one-time thing or a one-stop shop. We will always be going through the journey of being confident. There are always going to be different things, whether internally or externally, picking at our confidence, or things that we need to face and deal with in order to become more confident in that area. So in my last episode, I just went over 3 particular things and 3 key elements that can help you in your self-confidence journey. And if you have not listened to episode 1, I truly encourage you to go back, listen to episode 1, so you can understand what I'm talking about in this episode, for this particular episode. So I want to do just a small recap of what I discussed in the last episode. And like I said, I discussed my story, and I won't go in depth. I talked about all the things that led up until me having to face the struggle of really being comfortable in my own skin and getting to a point where I knew that journey of self-confidence needed to be taken. And so the 3 things that I truly talked about was acknowledging your insecurities. I talked about making a list of the things that you're insecure about, and then counteracting that by making a list of solutions on how you can get over those insecurities by just doing small things, implementing small, tiny habits to start your journey and your path in self-confidence. I also talked about seeking help and counseling, like therapy, life coaching, and spiritual guidance to help you in your process, because a lot of us have dealt with a lot of traumatic things, whether it was in our childhood, whether it was our teenage years, or in our adulthood, that we never really faced. And so by the time we get to our adulthood, we have so many unresolved issues within ourselves that we think that our trauma is who we are, and that is not the case. And we have a false sense of identity of who we are. And so we allow certain things externally to define who we are, and we become this person and say, well, this is just how I am. And that's not the truth. The true thing is that we never dealt with our internal wounds and our internal issues to really face them and to help us understand that our trauma is not who we are. It's a false identity of self. And I think it's so important, especially if you have dealt with a lot of traumatic things that has shaken up your world, especially if you were young, in your teenage years, or even in your high school years. And, you know, the things that we don't deal with festers into other areas of our lives, especially the relationship with ourselves and the relationship with others. So I talk about getting a therapist. I know therapy truly helped me. And even with therapy, it's not a one-stop shop, like an overnight thing. Therapy, to me, starts the wheels of healing. It's the beginning of your healing process, but you have to do the inner work too. You can't expect the therapist to do all the work, or the life coach. You know, if you're into life coaching, which I am, I love it. That, and I talk about that a little bit, but you can't expect somebody else outside of you to do the inner work. You have to be willing to face those ugly and not so comfortable things, the uncomfortable things within yourself. And so I also talked about life coaching, how that truly changed my life. You know, I have had different life coaches at different times in my life to help me through different things, whether it was my business, you know, and self, you know, just confidence within myself as a woman, my femininity. And I think that has been a powerful process in my life, working with different life coaches. And I still have a life coach, you know, and a mentor, different programs that I take, even with her, in her business that she has. And I take different programs, and, you know, and it has helped me flourish as a woman. I also talk about spiritual guidance, whatever that means to you and for you. For me, that would mean, you know, my spiritual beliefs, meditation, prayer, spiritual guidance, you know, from God. For me, that's what that means for me. So whatever that means for you and what you need to tap into. I know meditation was a big journey for me. Meditation was the beginning of my healing, and it still is. You know, healing is not a one-stop shop. None of these things are, because all these things are processes. And so the third thing I talk about, change your circle. And when you start dealing with your inner man and your inner self, and you start to heal, your circle gonna change. People can no longer, the people that you used to be around that used to be able to easily manipulate you or put you down mentally, emotionally, verbally abuse you, they won't be able to do those things, and they won't like the new person that you're becoming, because you're starting to know who you are and your worth. One thing I have learned, that people only treat you how you treat yourself. No one can make you inferior unless you give them your consent to make you feel that way. And that's actually a quote by Eleanor Roosevelt, I think. I'm not for sure. But with that said, the best way to take your power back is by setting boundaries with someone. And when you start setting boundaries with that person, and start setting boundaries within yourself, and say, you know what, I'm not comfortable with this, or this is who I am, or this is what I like and don't like. And when you start setting boundaries, things shift and change. I'm telling you. And so those people that benefited off you not being confident or not knowing who you are, they no longer will benefit from that, because because you have done the inner work. And I always talk about doing the inner work, because a lot of women, and I say this, a lot of women have a lot of insecurities, and so they will feel competitive towards another woman, or feel what we say hating on another woman, because they are choosing not to do the inner work, or they want to have this competition spirit or one upper spirit, or one upper personality. Like if she say she's going to Paris, you say you went to Hong Kong, and I have dealt with some people like that. They just want to always try to keep up with what I'm doing, and that I know for me kind of don't really bother me at all, because I'm the type of person, I know who I am, I'm me, and there's no competition. Nobody can be greater than me, meaning that I am me, and I'm going to always celebrate other people, because I believe there's enough room for everybody. Every woman that has every different gift, or if we have the same gift, we're two different people, we're going to touch different crowds of audiences. So I believe there's enough room for everybody. So I celebrate the greatness in every woman, because I think it's important. And the women that don't celebrate greatness in other women, is because they have not did the inner work to deal with themselves. And so with part one, switching from part one, now let's get into part two. Part two, I am talking about, the first thing I want to discuss is investing in yourself. And I know we talk about self-care, everybody is talking about self-care. I actually was at Walgreens and standing in line, and I seen the New York Times had like on their front cover talking about self-care. And self-care to me is more than just bubble baths, getting your hair done, nails done, toes done. I think that's the external things. But to me, like I talked about in part one, starting with the internal things, to me, self-care is taking care of your mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, relational, financial health. All those things that I mentioned, that's the beginning of internal self-care. So because part two, in the Confident Confidentials, we are talking about the external things that you can do to build up your self-confidence and build up your confidence as a whole. And so the first thing is, like I said, investing in yourself. And it's important to make yourself a priority. So different ways you can invest in yourself is by dating yourself once a month or once a week. I know for me, when I was dating myself once a month, that was not enough. I just still felt like I was lacking some things within me, some things that I needed. So I started to date myself once a week. And even now, with so much that's going on with coronavirus and being quarantined and not being able to travel and do so much, because I'm a traveler by nature and heart, I have to think of creative ways to date myself. And I'm still not there yet, and that's fine. But I'm learning to try to, even if I have a date night in the house in my room and watch a movie. Recently I watched The High Note, it was really good. So, just doing little things like that. Another thing you can do is doing things that you love. When you really start spending time with yourself and doing things that you really love, that creates a time of solitude for yourself, and you're invested in that moment and showing up for yourself. Another thing, taking solo trips. Like I told you, I love to travel, so taking solo trips has been my consistent thing since 2016. And I love taking solo trips. I love doing things by myself. I don't have to cater to somebody else's agenda, and I can do what I want to do, sleep in if I want to, read a book, go to an art museum. Those things I can do for myself without having to consult somebody else and try to see, cater to them and try to see what they want to do. I love solo trips because that is purely my time to mentally, emotionally get away. Another thing you can do is, and especially I really encourage you, creating a morning routine. Because when you create a morning routine, that morning routine sets the tone for your day, because you're putting yourself at the beginning of your day. I think it's so important as women that we put ourselves at the top of the list, number one. That is so important, that we be number one in our lives, because once we fill our cup and feed into ourselves, we'll be able to help other people out of our overflow, because what's in our cup is for us. Ayana Von Zant said that in an interview with Oprah. I think it was the Oprah tour, and she was talking about it's important that we fill our cup, and what's in our cup is for us. What comes out of the cup is for other people, and I think that's so prevalent. I also want to talk about the next thing is making some external changes, and the external changes can consist of changing your wardrobe. I know for me, when you start having changes within, when you start like dealing with your internal conflicts and issues with your confidence, but you start doing the work to become better and just to better yourself and just to heal, and go through that process, things on the outside is going to change. You won't want to wear the same clothes that you used to wear before you started your confidence journey. So changing your wardrobe is one way you can increase your confidence externally. Changing your hairstyle, I talk about that in my last episode, and you, like I said, you can go back and listen to that if you have not listened to it. Changing your hairstyle, you no longer hiding behind things that no longer fit you, and decluttering your closet. I think that's the most important thing. Decluttering your closet, changing your look. When you start feeling better about yourself and confidence, I think the right clothes and the right hairstyle is going to start signifying a new you. Your inner confidence is going to start radiating outside of you. And the last thing to help you become comfortable in your own skin externally is creating a confident environment. I think it's important for you to surround yourself around inspiring things or things that make you feel good. And we're not confident 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. None of us are. And sometimes it's so important on how you and the things you place yourself in, the environments, the things you listen to and watch. So I think it's important to create a good playlist. I like music, so creating a positive, confident playlist on Spotify is a great thing. I created a Spotify playlist called Diva Buster, and I put it in the comments. And so if you need some like motivation and some feeling good about yourself as a woman and feeling like a boss, I'm telling you, I believe this playlist added, I think it will build up your confidence in a great way. Also, reading certain books, reading books to empower myself as a woman, to empower my mind, my heart, is important to me. Listening to podcasts, that's another way you can create a confident environment, because you're listening to positive, inspirational, or empowering, motivational things to keep you upbeat even when you're feeling down. Also, joining empowering women groups, whether it's through Facebook, and that's where most of the groups are, or following certain groups on Instagram. I think that's important. Investing in yourself, paying for different groups to be a part of. I think that's important. Free is good, but when you pay the money for yourself, I've learned that free is good, but paying for myself to be a part of something is even better, because I feel happier when I pay the money to invest in myself. And I grow even better. I grow even more, I grow even more because I took the time out to say, this is what I deserve, and I don't mind paying the money to invest in myself. I know whatever I invest in myself has a great rate of return. And I will list all the different groups that I'm a part of and life coaches that I have now, because I think it will be helpful. And I just think the 3 steps that I talked about of dealing with your external confidence, creating a confident environment, and investing in yourself, making some external changes. I think all these things add up to a constant growth in your confidence. And sometimes as women, especially women that's insecure or deal with their insecurities, we all are insecure in our own way. Nobody is exempt from being insecure, especially as we're growing through this human experience. But one thing I have learned, it's a difference between a confident woman and a false confident woman. And what I mean by that, some women believe that they're confident. And if you're arrogant, you're not confident. That's a false sense of identity and a false sense of confidence. One thing I know is that when you think that your bank account makes you who you are, what you can afford, the clothes you have, or like I said before, being a one-upper, always feel like you're trying to keep up with the Joneses or trying to compete with that woman that has just a quiet confidence about herself, a self-assurance about herself. When you're trying to compete with that person, or that woman that has that je ne sais quoi, what they say in the French culture, then that's a false sense of confidence. That's not even confidence, to be honest. I'm not going to even name that confidence. That's arrogance, and that you have a false sense of who you are. And I have dealt with women like that, and I have learned women that can celebrate other women unapologetically, women that can give another woman a compliment without any strings attached, women that can say, hey, oh girl, I like your outfit, oh thank you, and they take the compliment, and then you ask, oh okay, where do you get that from? And you can easily tell them. I think that woman is more confident than the woman that has a false identity of what she thinks is confidence, but is really arrogance, and she don't really know who she is because she has a crab in a bucket mentality, or she may see another woman's light, so she'll say things and do things to constantly pick at her and tear her down, or try to think she can intimidate the other woman. I truly do not care for women like that, and I truly don't deal or want those type of women in my atmosphere, because I believe there's a difference between a thermostat woman and a thermometer woman. To me, a thermostat woman is that woman I talked about that has that je ne sais quoi. That woman has a quiet confidence, but she commands the room, and people and things are automatically attracted to her. I just believe that. A thermostat woman is a woman that sets the tone for her environment. A thermometer woman is a woman that camouflage herself and changes with her environment because she don't really know who she is. She has a false sense of who she is. And I think in a society where we have been psychologically taught as women to compete against each other, to constantly tear each other down, and I see it all the time, and I've realized even in my years and growing and evolving, it's not the man that's tearing the woman down, it's the woman. I have had more issues with women, being catty towards me, and what they say, hating on me, but I don't even pay that no attention, because I'm like, I'm me and I'm okay with me, and you're not being okay with me. That's none of my business. That has nothing to do with me. That's your issue, not mine. But throughout my life, and I've learned to let them women know, and I don't say anything. I just kind of do my thing and do me, because I think it's so important when you do when you be the best version of who you are. It doesn't matter what other people think. Their issues and problems and insecurities has nothing to do with you. It has all to do with themselves. If they trying to compete with you, and they gonna lose all the time. And one thing I truly believe, I don't care who you are. You could try to compete with me if you want to. You gonna lose all the time. Because why? I am me. I will always expand and grow in my lane. You can't keep up with the blueprint that God has for me. I feel like we all have our own individual DNA blueprint that God has handcrafted for us. So if I'm doing anything outside of my blueprint and lane, I'm not being true to myself. And so when a woman feels like she has to compete with another woman, it's because you're not comfortable with who you are and the blueprint for your life, or you have not gotten associated and familiar about how powerful you are. And I think it's sad that that women, we hate on each other more than anything. And so I want to end with this. It's so important that you understand that confidence is not some overnight success story. That confidence is not, like I said before, and I say it again, one-stop shop situation. It's important that if you are not confident, that you work on it. But I commend women that working on their confidence and they still high-fiving and empowering another woman, because that is making you more confident than the woman that's trying to be arrogant, trying to allow her status or what she has financially to make another woman feel bad. That's not making her look good at all. So I think it's important as women that we stop tearing each other down, and that we learn to deal with our own internal issues, and that another woman's come up is not your downfall. Another woman's come up is your victory too, and is actually a compliment to you, letting you know, hey, if she can do it, I can do it. Not that I can do it better. No, I'm gonna stay in my lane and see what worked for me. And I think it's so important to get to know who you are and do the inner work. Like I said, a lot of people don't want to do the inner work. They want the fame, they want the recognition, but they don't want to do the inner work, the true work to be better. And so I hope you enjoyed this episode, part 2 of the Confident Confidentials. I'm telling you, I enjoyed this series, part 1 and part 2. Part 1, I talked about the internal. Part 2, I'm talking about the external. And I just want you all to know that your money is great. It gives us opportunities. What you have, materialistic things, is great too. We love them. But those things don't make you who you are. You are you because you are you. And you are worthy just by you alone. All those external things just add to and signify the person within. And if you're not whole and happy within, it's going to signify your sicknesses instead of your healing. You know, it's going to signify your illnesses, meaning your dis-ease with yourself, than the great things about you. So I think this is so important as women. We become confident, a true, authentic confidence. And so with that said, here at the Inspirational Corner, we always encourage you to live loud, live bold, live loud, and live authentically without apology. Have a great, beautiful day, everyone.